All right, we're going to work on worksheet number 18, Statistics 3, Measures of Center. So last few sections we talk about population and a sample, how to gather sample, how to organize a sample. So this section will talk about like once we have a data set, what do you calculate from it. So when working with the data set, some of the useful numbers we can calculate are called measures of center. A measure of center is a number that represents the typical or a center value that best represent the whole data set. So what it is I want to calculate one single number to represent the entire data set. So instead of looking at like 30 numbers or 1,000 numbers, why don't we just calculate one number, and I want to pick that number so it's like a representative or the center or a typical value of a data set. In the worksheet, we'll study three most commonly used measures of center. So first measure of center is called the mean. Mean is just a fancy name for mean is the average of the data value set. I'm sure you've heard averages before. When you take a bunch of quizzes, you get the average score. When you finish a class, you get the GPA, which is grade point average. So use average quite often. It just, again, gives you one number that represents your entire data set. We can calculate it by adding all the data values and dividing the sum by the total number of the data values. So for example, let's say you have 5 quizzes. To find the average quiz score, you basically add those 5 scores and divide by 5 because there are 5 quizzes, right? So adding the data values and dividing by the number of total sum by the total numbers of the data values. Generally speaking, if the data value contains large numbers, so if you have a high quiz score, basically your mean will be high. It's obvious, right? And if the data value contains very many small numbers, means if you have a very small, like low scores, then mean will also come out to be low. Okay, side note, since the mean represents the center of the data set, it has to be between the lowest value and the highest value. What it means is if you're getting like A's and C's on your quizzes, your mean has to be somewhere between A and C. So your mean cannot be D, which is kind of not fair, right? You're getting A's and C's. How is your mean average to be D? So average has to be between lowest and highest number. All right, let's look at the median. Median is a single value, it's the middle value of the data set when it's arranged in an increasing order. Once the elements are arranged in an ascending order, we pick the middle. So median is basically the middle number, middle value. Number as the median. If you have an even number of elements, so if you have, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you have 5 elements, obviously the middle one is the third one, right? So that's easy to pick. But what if you have 6 numbers? Whereas there's no one middle number, but we actually have 2 middle numbers. So if you have an even number of elements, then we average the 2 middle numbers. So this is for technicality. If you have odd many numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then pick the middle one. If you have even numbers, then we'll pick 2 middle ones. Just in terms, like, okay, if you have 5 or 6, it's kind of easy to look at the middle number. But if you have like hundreds or thousands, how do you find the middle number? Is there like a shortcut? So for this example, I'm looking at this. I have 5 elements. So I want to try to find the pattern. So if you do 5 here, just 5 plus 1 divide by 2. So that'll be 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Oh, that just means it's 1 to third one, right? So here I'm kind of adding 1 and dividing by 2 instead of just dividing by 2, because when you do 6 divided by 2, I get 3, which is the third one. So it kind of worked out like that. How about for if I have 6 elements? So 6 plus 1 divided by 2. So that's 7 divided by 2, you get 3.5. Again, that's so it's not third one, it's not the fourth one, it's 3.51 in some ways. So that's between 3 and 4. So I can kind of interpret it that way too. So when we calculate the median of n many elements, we are working with the ranking, right? So it's like rank number 1, rank number 2, and rank number 3. This is what we picked. Same here, rank 1, rank 2, rank number 3, rank number 4. So 3.5 will be like somewhere in between. When we arrange the elements in ascending order, we are essentially ranking them from number 1, the smallest number, this one and this one, and number n, which is the largest one, right? The element with the ranking n plus 1 divided by 2, so this is kind of what we did, will be the median. So that's like a little shortcut. Since the median represents the middle of the data set, kind of like same as the mean, it has to be between the smallest value and the largest value. Again, if you're getting like 60s, 70s, and 80s on your quizzes, then your mean cannot be like 90, right? It has to be between the range of numbers you're getting. All right, let's look at the next one, the mode. A mode is the element that has the largest or the highest frequency. In other words, it occurs the most often. So if no elements occur more than once, then the data doesn't have the mode. So some, like mean and the median, every data set has mean and the median. Sometimes the data set has no mode because none of the elements occur more than once. And sometimes the data doesn't have multiple modes. If there are a bunch of numbers that happens multiple times and you have two numbers that occurs the most often and they're tied, then we have two modes. So it is possible to have two modes, possible to have no modes. For mean and median, there has to be one exact number for the median and one exact number for the mean. So we don't have anything that has two different means. Can have that. All right. If we have a qualitative data set, which of the measures of center can be calculated? Explain why. So qualitative data means categories. So this means like categories or description, right? So for the mean and the median, you can't do those kind of stuff because you have to add numbers. But if you have categories, how do you add categories? So for example, let's say you have ice cream flavors, chocolate and vanilla and like strawberries, I don't know, right? So in order to calculate the mean, you have to add them up and divide by 3. So how do you add chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, divide by 3? What do I get? Like, I don't know what that is. So here we cannot calculate the mean. Same for the median. You're supposed to arrange it in increasing order. Well, what's the smallest flavor? I don't even know if that makes sense, right? But let's say there's another chocolate. So I cannot do median, I cannot do mean, but if I have to calculate, if I have to find the mode for this one, I add it under chocolate, so they have two chocolates. So that's the one that happens most often. So here, only the mode is possible. I can't do mean and the median. All right, so here let's look at number 2. It says calculate the mean, median, and the mode of the given data set. Okay, so mean is basically, I just have to add them all up. 79, 82, 86, 94, then 90. Add them all up and divide by, how many do you get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to divide that by 5. Then I get 421. Divide that by 5, where I get 84.2. So average, maybe this was like, exam scores. So average exam score is 84.2. That's the mean. How about the median? Again, in order to calculate the median, first I have to arrange them in order. Is it arranged in increasing order? Nope. So I have to put the smallest number first and then largest number at the end. So I'm going to redo my arrangement. 79, the next one is 80, 82, 86, and then 94. So now I arrange it according to the in increasing order. I have 5 elements, so middle number is going to be the third element. So 82 is going to be my median. Here, do I have a mode here? Is there any number that occurs the most often? I don't think there's any repeats, so no mode. Okay, so that's how I'm going to calculate mean, median, and the mode. Here I'm going to have you pause and work on the rest of number 2. All right. After you're done with number 2, let's get into the next topic. Here we're going to look at calculating mean, median, and mode from a frequency table. So sometimes this is more realistic because in many cases we're going to give in a frequency table instead of like raw data. So you're not going to get a bunch of numbers, but we're going to get it in terms of like organized way. So sometimes we're going to see many times you're going to see a frequency table or bar graph instead of just actual data set. So in that case, how do I find the median or mean and then the mode? So let's look at first one, calculating the mean from the frequency table. It's a long way. So from a given frequency table, we can recreate the data by writing all the elements from each class. So you can literally rewrite the whole data set from a frequency table. So last section, we talked about how to create a frequency table from the data set here. So hopefully now, if I see a frequency table, basically I can go back and say, well, yeah, then data must be in this. So the elements from each class has to be repeated according to the frequency C of each class. Once we list all the elements, then we can find the mean. So once I have the data, I know how to find the mean. Just add them all up and divide by total number. So remember, the total number of elements will be the sum of all the frequencies. All right, let's look at number 3, calculate the mean number of siblings. So we have our frequency table, number of siblings, frequency. So somebody has 1 sibling, somebody has 2, somebody has 3 siblings. These are the frequencies. So first I noticed that, okay, there's 6, 3, 1, so there'll be total of 10 people are surveyed. So here, I want to make a little side remark. I noticed that 10 people are surveyed. So if I were to kind of like, okay, so let's interpret what the first line is. So 1 sibling, frequency is 6. That means there are 6 people who has 1 sibling. So if I were to recreate the data set, it'll be like this: 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1. So there are 6 people. And then what's the next one? Next class has 2. These people have 2 siblings. How many are there? How many are there? 3 people with 2 siblings. So that'd be 2, 2, 2. And then kind of same thing. The last class, they have 3 siblings. There was 1 person who has 3 siblings. So that's 3. So let me see. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are 10 people with different number of siblings. How do I calculate the mean? Mean, basically I'm just going to add up all the numbers. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3. So whatever that is. And then I'm going to divide that by 10, right? Okay. So what's 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1? Well, isn't there a better way to do that just than going 1 plus 1 plus 1? Shouldn't I just say 1 times 6? That can work, right? And same for the second part. So this part I can, instead of writing 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, I can do 1 times 6. How about the second one is 2 plus 2 plus 2? It's not too bad, but can I just say it's 2 times 3 because I have 3 2's. And then last one is just 3, so I don't have to do anything. But if I were to, then it'd be like this. I have 1 3's, right? And over 10. And once you calculate everything out, I get 1.5. So average is 1.5 siblings. So the mean is 1.5 siblings. It sounds kind of weird. How do you have 1.5 siblings? Like in individual level, it's hard. It's like 1.5 sibling doesn't make sense. But as an average, 1.5 makes sense. That means some people have 1, some people have 2. So average is between somewhere 1 and 2, right? So this is how I'm going to calculate the mean from a frequency table. All right, let's look at the next topic. Calculating the mean from the frequency table, shortcut. So here, this example, we had only 10 people, so it wasn't too bad. But what if I had surveyed like 200 people? Am I supposed to write out all 200 numbers? They'll just take forever. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at the second line where we have calculated somewhat in like a shortcut way. So maybe we can kind of come up with a pattern so I can calculate the mean somewhat easier way. So let's look at the calculating the mean from frequency table shortcut way. So to find the mean from the frequency table, multiply each class by its frequency. So like here, 1 times 6.
So I'm looking at 1, that was the number of sibling, and 6 was its frequency, right? So if I kind of do the shortcut of this, it'd be 1 times 6. If I look at the table, it's just this class times this frequency. Again, 2 times 3, where does that come from? 2 is the number of sibling, the class, and then 3 was the frequency, and so on and so forth. 3 times 1 is here. So basically what it says is, multiply each class by its frequency. So 1 times 6, 2 times 3, and 3 times 1. Sum of all the products. So this is what I did. And then divide by the sum by the total number of elements. So that's that. So that kind of gives you a shortcut. So I don't have to write all this out. I could immediately jump to the second step. So I don't have to, I can save some time. All right. Let's look at the next part. Calculating the median from frequency table, even though I said median. So first, we're going to calculate n, the total number of elements, by adding up all the frequencies, right? Frequencies. So once I have that, then we look for the element with the rank n plus 1 over 2, kind of like what we did before. The class in which the ranked number n plus 1 over 2 belong will be the median. So what does that even mean? So let's look at the example we did before. So my n is 10 because the number of people surveyed were 10. So here I'm going to use red. So n is 10. So what I'm going to do is n plus 1 over 2. So that's 11 over 2. That's 5.5. So rank, whoever is rank 5.5. So that's like rank 5, somewhere between rank 5 and rank 6. I noticed that first class have 6 people in it. So this means rank number 5 and rank number 6 are in this class because there are 6 people in it. So that's it. That's going to be our median. So this class, the rank number 5 and number 6 person belongs to this class, which has 1 sibling. So basically that's what it says. Once you find the rank, go to the class that has that element it belongs to, and that'll be your median. Calculating the mode from the frequency table. Again, mode is the one that has most often occurring. So since the mode is one with the highest frequency, the class with the highest frequency will be the mode. Oh, that's easy. So let's see, look at this. Oh, for our example, 6 was the highest frequency out of 6, 3, 1. So this will be my mode. Mode is also 1 for this example then. Calculating the mean, median, and mode from the bar graph. Basically create a frequency table from the graph. So we'll just translate bar graph into frequency table, and then you can go from there. Side notes, create frequency table from bar graph, then we can find these 3 measures of center, right? So that's kind of like what we talk about. If the class is range of numbers, so there's an example where class is just not one number, but it's a range of numbers. And then use the midpoint for convenience. So we'll look at the example later where that happens. So actually, let's look at the example here. Let's look at the example, the very last example. So first I want to commute. So I see a histogram. So how do I create the table? So here, let me do this. So this is my class. This is frequency, right? So first class, if you look at the first bar, it goes from 0 to 10 minutes. Oh, it's a commute time. So 0 to 10 minutes. So previous example, most cases, my class is just one. Each class has 1 number in it, so that's no problem. If you look at this bar graph, each bar has only 1 number, so no problem. However, this one, my bar has like 0 to 10, so which number are we supposed to pick? So for convenience, what we're going to do is the most fair number to put in instead of 0 to 10 is just one number, 5. Why 5? Because it's midpoint. What's the midpoint? It's the number right in the middle between of 0 and 10, which is basically average of 0 and 10. So that's going to be 5. So it's like, oh, middle number is 5. Midpoint is 5. And the next class is 10 to 20. So midpoint is 10 plus 20 divided by 2. That'll be 15. So that's 15. And then 25. And then 35. And then 45. So I'm going to create a frequency table, and then I'm going to look at the frequency. Okay, the first bar frequency is 5, and second bar frequency is 10, so I'll just copy the frequencies, and then 10, and then 25, and 20. So once I have, so what I can do is I can translate this bar graph into frequency table. Then I kind of use the same strategy before to calculate the mean and median and the mode. All right, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to have you finish number 4, and that will be the end of the worksheet.